Welcome to Headlines. This is David Lichtenstein. This week we will have a great Techeilis debate from Rabbi Yisroel Barkin, who's written much about Techeiles. We've had him on before. He's the author of Aroin Techeiles, and who is obviously pro-Techeiles, and Rabbi Shaul Shimon Deutsch. He's known as the Leonza Rebbe. He's also the head of the Living Torah Museum, and he is in the camp that does not wear Techeiles. He sort of does not believe that this is the Techeiles that's brought in the Torah, and this should be really a fascinating debate. I just want to put on a disclaimer. I am a Techeiles wearer. I wear 3 different shittas of Techeiles at different times, not at the same time. So you may see me as a little bit of a biased moderator, and if I am, I admit so. So that's just a caveat on this discussion. We're on the air Motzei Shabbos from 11 to 12 midnight on WMCA 570 AM, and we're also on the Nachum Segal Network, as well as Monday morning at 11, again on NachumSegal.com. You can find all our programs at HeadlinesTorah.com. That's one word, HeadlinesTorah.com, including all past shows, as well as Mara Makaimis on many of the shows, most of the recents, put together by a wonderful editor here, Yankee Berkowitz. We owe him a thanks. You can get all our programs on our hotline, 732-806-8700. You can listen to past programs. You can also leave messages. At the end of this program, we will be playing 1 or 2 of the messages, many as we have time to get to, and that should be interesting. You can email any questions to info@headlinesbook.com. That's info@headlinesbook.com. Okay, before we start, I would like to say something. First, I get many messages, both in email and on the hotline, and one of the questions they say, David, why do you interrupt a lot of your guests? Which it's true, and I'll tell you, before I started this, my background is not, broadcasting. I actually hired a coach, and he said, I want to tell you something, Mr. Lichtenstein. The death of any program is when you have somebody who goes into a soliloquy, and he said a soliloquy is really a speech of more than 3 or 4 minutes. He says, your listeners will just fall asleep on you. People today have nanosecond attention spans. So he said, your goal is really to try to keep moving, question, answer. So I do apologize, and I do apologize for the many great Rabbanim we have on, but I do it just sort of to make to make the Olam more interested, so that Divrei Torah should be spread. It is not chas v'shalom, a lack of respect, etc. I'm just following sort of the protocol, how a program is supposed to be run. Before we start, I would like to say a small vart on the parsha. This week it talks about, as Karbani Lachmi V'l Ishai talks about the carbon tamid of the Ben Aboiker, Ben Arboim, which really is, has really transmutated into basically Shachris Mincha, the 2 Tmidim that we have, Shachris and Mincha. So there's a great Rashi there, and Rashi says over there, he says, Hashem said to Moshe, fascinating Rashi, he says, first you came and you requested the request of Tzalafchad. They wanted their legacy established. Then you came and you asked me for your children. You said, I would like a Yerusha for my children, or for Klal Yisrael, who will be the future leader. I need my requests fulfilled. And the last thing Hashem said, so now I want my requests fulfilled. Tzavedi al banai, tell my children, I need from you the carbon in the morning, the afternoon offering, and in our case, the tefillah of Shachris and Ben Arbaim. And I think there's an amazing thought here. Do you know that in the United States, it is now known as the United States of Prozac? And what does that mean? Depression rates are at an all-time high. Suicides nationally. The amount of Americans on Prozac is astounding. It's the most profitable drug in the world right now, a depression drug. Listen to this chazal. I have a solution, a possible solution. There's a medrash. It's brought by the Maral in the Hagdama to the Siva Solam, and it's also brought in a much-discussed chazal. And it says like this, Machlokes between 4 Tanaim. It says, Zeh Sefer told us, Adam, what is the most important klal in the Torah. Klal gadol b'Torah. So Ben Azai says it's b'tzelem elikim asas adam. Man, he's made in the demos of God. Rabbi Akiva says, no. The most important thing is v'hafta l'recha kamocha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. All of Torah is about ben adam l'chaverei. Man treating others with dignity, etc. Gemara says, Benanis says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The unity, man, creation, the cosmos, all the unity, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Shimon ben Pazi says something astounding. Es hakeves ha'echad taseh b'boker, ves hakeves ha'seni taseh bein harbayim. Bring the morning offering and the evening offering. That is the klal gadol b'Torah. That is the most important thing. Amdu al raglam, they stood up and they said, Shimon ben Pazi is correct. Now, isn't that strange? The most important thing in the world, es hakeves ha'echad taseh b'boker, ves hakeves ha'seni taseh bein harbayim. What? Like tefillin, mezuzah, it says so many things. So I would suggest a solution with this Rashi. What is Rabbi Shaul saying? I created a vast cosmos. We've had scientists. They said the universe is unimaginably big, billions of light years across. There are megaverses, there are galaxies, trillions of galaxies of unimaginable size. Rashi says, and what does Rabbi Shaul say? Tzaveni al banai my tzarech. What is my tzarech? Hashem says, I created all of that so that a little yidela should daven shachris or mincha. When I'm standing there and I'm checking my messages, my emails by mincha, the entire cosmos, Hashem says, Tzaveni al banai is what? That you, me, together, we should daven a mincha, a shachris, a carbon shol tamid of the boker Torah. That's the purpose of all of. That's why Hashem created all of us. So what did Shimon ben Pazi say? You know what's the greatest thing? The anti-depression. When all of this incredible megaverse was created, Hashem created it just so that we could do a tiny little mitzvah, a tiny little davening with a little kavana. Look at the empowerment of how important we are. Look how ennobled we are by how does Yiddishkeit make each one of us so important and so great. All of us, planets, constellations. One davening is greater than all of that, is the purpose of all of that. So this is the United States of Prozac, because so many people walk around thinking, what am I here for? What am I doing? What's the purpose? What's the reason? One tefillah is the answer to everything. Hashem created all of you for one mitzvah, one carbon. I think that's what. Well, if we could really believe this Chazal, if we could take it into our hearts, we would never suffer another day of depression in our life. If we realized how great and powerful every single one of us is. I heard a story, and I may have said it before, that there was this kid. He went out, who was at risk. He got involved with drugs when he was a teenager, and a bad group of friends, bad. He was, really bad drugs, the worst type of drugs. And he left home, and his mother used to call him, had a cell phone, email, and he didn't come home maybe for 10 years. And one day he went clean. He straightened out. And he decided, you know what, I remember my mother loved me so much. I must go back. I haven't seen her in so many years. And he got a job, and he flipped some burgers or something. He got bought a bus ticket and traveled all the way back home. He comes back to the house. He sees the light is on in the front porch. It's at night. It's late at night already. The bus came at 11, and he walked from the bus stop at 12 midnight, maybe 1 in the morning. And he goes to the front door. He doesn't know, should I knock, wake my mom up, 1 o'clock in the morning? And then he has his hand on the thing, and he turns it, and the door is open. So he tiptoes in. He says, oh my goodness, maybe somebody broke in. Maybe they killed the family. You terrible things in the newspapers. He tiptoes, he goes in, tiptoes up, and as he's tipping up the creaky steps, he hears a voice of his mother saying, Who's there? Who's there? A scared voice. And he comes and he says, it's me, Mom. And his mother comes running out and hugs him and cries. And he says, Mom, I thought I got so scared. The door is open. And his mother looks at him and she says, Tatala, the door has been open for 10 years since you've gone. I was hoping any night, any special holy night, you would come in. That's why the door was open. So what does it tell us? Es karbani lachmi. Let's put away our iPhones, our cell phones, our whatever machshavas we have the next time we daven Shachris, the next time we daven Mincha. All of the universe was created so that the Yid say, Ani mevakesh tzorchai kaviyachal, amitzaveni al banai. Right? What's the klal gadol b'Torah? The klal gadol b'Torah is all of the universe was created for that one Maisa mitzvah of me and you. Let's go telephone and our guests. We have with us on the phone from Brooklyn, New York, Rabbi Shaul Shimon Deutsch. He's the director of the Living Torah Museum. And from Lakewood, New Jersey, Rabbi Yisroel Barkin, who's the co-author of the Sefer Levush Ha'aron on Techeiles. Welcome, Rabbi Deutsch, Rabbi Barkin.
Great to be here.
Rabbi Deutsch, could you start off by giving us a little bit of history of Techeiles and the issues that we're facing in front of us today?
Okay, so the Torah gives us one of the mitzvahs is that we should have, obviously, in Parsha Shlach, we should wear tzitzis with something called Techeiles. Techeiles was something that was well known to the people of the ancient world, and they knew exactly where to get the Techeiles from, what the chilazon was, and the Gemara mentions in Shevet Zvulun, once in 70 years, to the tops of the mountains of Shevet Zvulun come this creature, and they all come at the same time. They also knew how to get them and make the dam hachilazon into the color of Techeiles. It was something that was well known, and then, as the Sifri tells us in Parsha Zos HaBracha, as well as the Medrash Rabbah and Tanchuma in Parsha Shlach, at a certain point in Golus, usually we refer to it as in the time of the Geonim, it was nignaz, it was put away. And it was put away for various reasons, as is explained by the Arizal in Shara Kavanis, and as well as in Pri Eitz Chaim, that Bisman HaGolus, we have no right to wear Techeiles because our bodies are not capable of absolutely wearing Techeiles. And this is also echoed by a letter that was written by the not only the Arizal, he writes about this, but also the Ben Ish Chai gives a whole mystical explanation how Bisman HaGolus we cannot wear Techeiles. The Radzina Rebbe, Rabbi Lerner, started a major campaign of trying to identify the chilazon. He went to Naples, Italy. He found the creature which he believed was the chilazon, which was called the cuttlefish. His shita was disproven. And the way it was disproven is that the Medrash tells us that the chilazon has a nartik, it has a shell. His creature did not have a shell. And as the Aruch HaShulchan in Hilchos Tzitzis Perek Tes, Siman Tes tells us that the Chacham Echad wanted to bring back Techeiles. It was not niskabel by Gedolei Hador from his generation. The Chavetz Chaim, when he was shown the Radzina's Techeiles, he was a Kohen, said, Ich wollte nicht reingesteckt mein Kopf in the Heichel mit azat Techeiles. I would not stick my head into the Heichel with such a Techeiles. Afterwards, there was an attempt by Rav Herzog, who was later become the chief rabbi of Israel, to identify a kind of snail called the Jantina snail. It was shown to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. He disproved it once again because Tosfos tells us that the chilazon has a special sac and which you get the dam hachilazon from, and this creature, the Jantina snail, did not have a separate sac, and therefore it doesn't fit in with that as well. And then about 20 years ago, a very popular new idea came out, which basically tried to say that the Murex trunculus was the chilazon. And in this case, too, there became a lot of problems as well. Number one is a problem is that Rashi says that this creature comes out from Mina Aretz, from the ground, and not from the sea. there's a stira because Rashi in one place seems to imply that it's coming from the sea. So the Sefer Hakon explains that just like you have a creature that's a land creature, like a land snail, and you have a sea snail, the chilazin is the only creature which can go both on land and on sea. And therefore, this would be a problem for the murex, because the murex is obviously a creature that cannot live outside of water. It will die after 20 minutes. It cannot climb to the top of the mountains of Shevet Zvulun. There's another problem with the murex also, is that the Pnei Moshe and the Yerushalmi says it has gidim v'atzamas. It has sinews and it has actual bones. And obviously the murex doesn't have any bones. It doesn't
wait. So
I'll just finish saying it doesn't fit in with the Rambam either, because the Rambam in Hilchos Tzitzis Perek Beis tells us that dam hachilozin is black k'diyoi. It's like black like ink. When you take out the murex, the color of the murex trunculus is colorless, and then it turns green and yellow, and then finally it turns blue. I've released 2 DVDs called The Mystery of Techeiles, where I take people scuba diving in the sea with all these creatures alive and show all the processes that's done. And for this reason, Techeiles Yisroel, as Rabbi Yashiv wrote in his famous letter, which I printed over in my book on Shmois, Rabbi Yashiv told me there's 17 rayas that the murex cannot be the Techeiles. And Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky said you could take the blood of a donkey and paint it blue. It's going to make it blue. It's going to be exactly as good as the new Techeiles.
Okay, so to summarize, you say the questions you have is that it doesn't have yidim atzamis. It's ink. The Rambam says is black, and also it seems that it can live on land, whereas the murex trunculus cannot live on land. I have one question for you before we go to Rabbi Barkin. Okay, the Techeiles that was brought to times Chazal, is that the same Techeiles that the Goyim use, like when it says Chur Karpasu Techeiles by Achashverosh? Was it only used by the Jews, or was it used worldwide at that time, the Techeiles?
The Techeiles, some of it was and some of it wasn't. That's the point that I want to demonstrate. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar left certain people in Eretz Yisrael that were allowed to stay because he wanted that kind of Techeiles.
When it says Chur Karpasu Techeiles, what does it mean? That by the Psud of Achashverosh, they wore Chur Karpasu Techeiles, Mordechai Yatzel b'Chosh Techeiles. Is this the same Techeiles, or were there 2 Techeiles that came from the sea in the times of the
Techeiles that came from the sea. Many Techeiles that came from land. In my museum alone, I have garments made from murex. I have garments that are 2,000 years old made from Jantina snails. I have garments that are made from many, many different creatures.
All blue.
All blue or similar colors.
Very good. Rabbi Barkin, could you respond to these points?
Was a total falsehood. He doesn't have any garments made from Jantina. Jantina doesn't make any dye and was never used.
Okay, Rabbi Barkin, could you respond to his points?
Yeah, I'll respond in order. I just wanted to point out that was a total falsehood. Okay, I'll take the points in order. Rabbi Deutsch likes quoting a Rashi in Menachos Memdad Manal that says that Chilazin is oil min haaretz, and he's saying that because there's other Rashis that say that it comes from the yam, so it lives both on the land and in the sea, which happens to be the murex lives much more than 20 minutes out of the water. We have one in our fish tank and lake with our Chilazin. It lives plenty of time out of the ocean, so it's not really a problem. But I just want to point out this.
Wait, Rabbi Barkin, the one in your fish tank, is it a fish tank full of water, or is it a fish tank without water?
With water, but it climbs out sometimes to the top.
Okay.
Okay. Now there's 5 Rashis that say that the Chilazin is in the water, in the dag. This Rashi that says that Chilazin is oil min haaretz. Rabbi Kiva Eger on the side is a Hadi Gemara changes the Gerson Rashi to oil al haaretz, because it's clearly a Tol Sefer in Rashi, because there's 5 other Rashis that say that's oil min hayam.
Where are the Rashis?
One is Rashi.
Tell us where the Rashis are.
Sabbath Afayin Da'al Amud Beis. The Rashi Sadi Chilazin. Rashi says Hu Kimin Dag Katan. Rashi Megillah Bav Amud Aleph says Chilazin oil min hayam laharim. Rashi in Bav Mitzvah Daf Samach Aleph Amud Beis says that Kol Ilon is Sabbath as Doimet Techeiles, but it's not like real Techeiles that comes from the yam. Rashi in Sanhedrin Daf Sadi Aleph Amud Aleph calls the Chilazin and Techeiles Shiyotzim min hayam. Rashi in Chulin Peitas Amud Aleph says the Chilazin min hayam hu oila. Now, many numerous other Rishonim say that the Chilazin is a fish-like creature. It could be a shellfish. To go around talking about this Rashi in Menachos Memdad Aleph, is a total shibush because Rabbi Akiva Eiger changes the girsa. Okay, next topic with Gidim Vatzamas. So there's a question, or I just mentioned that some of our Yerushalmi learn up the Yerushalmi that has Gidim Vatzamas. There's actually a question in the Yerushalmi if the Chilazon has Gidim Vatzamas. And some of our learn in Maskana that it does, some that it doesn't. So the question is the Murex. Now it's clear that the Chilazon is a snail. There's many rayas. We spoke about them. I spoke about them with you the other time. There's more rayas that I didn't speak about, but there's no one disagrees that the chilazon is a snail, and the most you could stretch it to is to be a slugger or something like that.
Okay, so let me ask Rabbi Deutsch. I have a question. What's the downside of wearing it, and maybe yaitz the mitzvah anyway?
Let's begin by saying a few important things. That number one, according to Rabbi Barkin, it's a Torah Satfusa the Gemara in Rashi. He forgot about maybe someone called the Noida B'Yehuda. Are we supposed to rip the Noida B'Yehuda out of all our things? Because the Noida B'Yehuda learns Pshat exactly as it's written. So for him to stand there, and this is the problem with all these Techeiles people. The problem is that they take and they twist and turn. The twist and turning is, very simply, the Noida B'Yehuda learns Pshat and Rashi K'moshehu. So they came along and they were trying to create an industry of trying to get people to wear something that doesn't fit into everything that people are doing.
Tell us about the Noida B'Yehuda and tell
Who wrote the tshuva? I want to know.
To say that it's a Torah Satfus for everyone. This is a sheker. Everybody should open the Noida B'Yehuda on this Gemara, Siman Gimel, in the Noida B'Yehuda. He learns Pshat and Rashi K'moshehu, and for you to do that. Number one, I discussed the 17 rayos with Rabbi Yashiv. He was masking with me. Reb Chaim Kanievsky was by him the week of Erev Shavuos, repeated to me the line that we can name in the blood for Nachamar, this farben blois, the guy saying punkt as good. So to try to twist and turn, the point is very simple, but don't try to say that it all fits in perfectly, because it doesn't.
Okay, Rabbi Barkin, you know the Noida B'Yehuda he's referencing.
Okay, so talking about if all fits in perfectly, I think that was our discussion the other week. I'm not trying to focus on that so much. Okay, there's a tshuva Noida B'Yehuda. I was asking Rabbi Deutsch, maybe I'm sorry for interjecting, who wrote this tshuva. Noida B'Yehuda's name was Rabbi Cheskel Landau. He was the great Noida B'Yehuda. We don't have to introduce him. This tshuva Rabbi Deutsch is quoting Noida B'Yehuda, Madur Tinyana, Siman Gimel, was not written by Noida B'Yehuda. It's a tshuva interjected by his son, so it should be attributed properly. It's at the end of Shmuel Landau. He was also a very great man. But to go around quoting as Noida B'Yehuda is inaccurate. Second of all, I didn't change the Gerson Rashi. Rabbi Akiva Eiger changed the Gerson Rashi. The great Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Okay. Shmuel Landau is misupik about Rashi because he brings the two Rashis. He brings one Rashi that says Yosim Hayam. He brings two Rashis that say Oila Min. He brings Rashi in Menachos that says it's Oila Min Ha'aret, and he says it's an earthworm, but it's not a dog mamish. And he brings the two other Rashis that say it comes from the Yam. Reb Shmuel Landau obviously didn't bring down the five Rashis I brought, which makes the case much stronger. And Rabbi Akiva Eiger might have known all these five Rashis. I'm assuming he did. And Rabbi Akiva Eiger had a much better case to change the Gersa and Rashi. I just want to add in one thing from Rebecca's Emden, who maintains the old Gersa and Rashi Oila Min Ha'aret, and he says it means from the Karka Hayam, the Aretz under the Yam, which is the Metzias of the Murex that borrows itself under the Karka Hayam and will come out from the Karka Hayam.
Okay, Rabbi Deutsch, what do you say?
First of all, when you're trying to say if something fits, it has to universally fit with everything. And this has been the problem with not only the Murex Shita of Techeiles, with all the Shitas of Techeiles. If you say a puzzle piece fits, if it fits on one side and it doesn't fit on the other side, that's a problem. He starts giving a whole Torah about Nignaz, does it mean for a day or a week? Everybody should open Shara Kavanas, Hilchas Tzitzis, Indian Tzitzis from the Arizal, open Priyetz Chayim, Shara Tzitzis from the Arizal, open the Ben Ish Chai, open up the Minchas Elazar, what he wrote, open up what the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe Marshab wrote to the Razina's son. Ein Techeiles Bizman Hazel. We learn it to mean that till Mashiach there's not going to be Techeiles. So the point is, you have to, if something fits, that would be one thing. But if something doesn't fit exactly, to tell people to go ahead and start wearing something, what's the problem? Even if it's the wrong Techeiles, maybe we should wear Techeiles, maybe Misafik. So this was addressed by the Rebbe Marshab and others, the Beis Halevi as well. The problem is that if you wear the wrong thing, you're being mevazi your tzitzis with something that's a creature that's tamei. When you have something that's the correct tzitzis, you can do that. The Beis Halevi went as far as to say that since we know that it was nignas, it cannot be any creature that we know of throughout history. The murex was something that was well known throughout history. The jantina slow is well known throughout history, as well as the cuttlefish. In my museum, I have artifacts with pictures of on coins as well as on oil lamps of murexes. I have pictures of items that are of the jantina snail and from the cuttlefish. So his pshat, it doesn't fit in not with the Beis Halevi, doesn't fit in with the Ben Ish Chai, it doesn't fit in with everything. It's a trying to force an issue where he's going against Gedolei Yisrael from all the previous generations.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm not a person to. Every person should speak to them.
Okay.
I have no. Let me just finish this point. Every person. Rabbi Barkin's a big Talmud Chacham. I have nothing personally against him. I have very good friends with people who wear Techeiles. I had long discussions with Rabelsky, who himself wore the new Techeiles. I asked him, doesn't fit with Rashi, doesn't fit with this. And Rabelsky told me, I can't think of another solution. So I once said to him, when he used to visit my museum constantly, I once said to him, what about the fact that it was Nignas? He says, let's change the subject. He didn't want to talk about it.
So, Rabbi Barkin, could you respond?
Yeah, I hope I got all these nakudas straight. I'll try to take them one at a time. I'll first take on the thing with Rabelsky. Rabelsky, the late great Gadol and Paisik, was my dear uncle, and I knew him very closely, possibly better than Rabbi Deutsch knew him. Rabelsky, I heard from him that he says, and many Talmidim heard from him, that the murex is 100% for sure the Techeiles. Okay, now if Rabelsky said it doesn't fit with Rashi, I can't believe that story, because I'm sure Rabelsky knew all these other Rashis. It's not an earthworm. Now, did Rabbi Deutsch ask Rabelsky that how does it fit with the Sifri? So Rabbi Deutsch mentioned this once in the Shir and Pesach, that he asked Rabelsky what about the Sifri and the Nignaz, and Rabelsky didn't have what to answer. So this was about 2 years ago. I was very bothered by that, and I called up Rabelsky, and I said that Uncle, there's people going around saying that you were a chayzer, you didn't have what to answer about the Sifri. So he said, no, it's just like when they went to the Satmar Rebbe with a contrast about the Erev, and the Satmar Rebbe smiled, so they went around after saying that the Satmar Rebbe held of the Erev. Now, I want to just touch on the Arizal. The Arizal says that we don't have Techeiles from the time of the Churban, so Halacha cannot be learned Kipshuta because they had it for many hundreds of years after the Churban. So it's Minei Ubei Muchrach. It's not a question. It's Minei Ubei Muchrach that the Arizal meant that during the time of the Beis Hamikdash is the main time for Techeiles, and you have to have Techeiles. During the time of the Churban, it's not Muchrach if there's Techeiles or not. Some years there is Techeiles, and some years there's no Techeiles. And just like many years after the Bayis Rishon, for 300 years after the Bayis Sheni, they had Techeiles at certain points because they were still close to the Beis Hamikdash. So now that we're much, much closer than 300 years to the Bayis Shlishi, obviously it's possible to have Techeiles according to the Arizal. I want to bring out a halachic point over here that, we're quoting the Arizal and Ben Ish Chai and Soidis. I just want to say, beside the Maltove Nafshi, we go to Sifrei Halacha. The Shal Shuvas Maril says that Techeiles could come back any time. It could be reintroduced into Halacha or De Simonim. The Levush writes that Beferish. He says that he called the Sefer Levush HaTecheiles because just like a person's Chai Lubash Techeiles B'chol Yomim Yimsa, just like you have to know Techeiles. It's interesting. He makes Techeiles the Iker. The Talmud says it could come back any time. The Chem de Shloimeh, the Bersavram, they write that it could come back any time with Simonim and so on with other Acharonim, the Dubna Magid. The Beis Halevi was never quoted in any source at all saying anything about being Muvazit Tzitzis with the Davar Tameh. And the Rebbe Rashab's Ksavim I'm not very familiar with. Just I know that a friend of mine showed me a quote from the Rashab from one of his letters that he writes a Lashon like this. I'll read to you. Gam zois after loimer the mishum zeh yi potter mitzvah Techeiles the bade mitzvah temidas ksheyesh bi chotenu lekaima nirish anu tzrichim lekaima. So I don't know so much. I'm not so familiar with the Rashab's Ksavim, but I would say that any objections that were given in the time of the Raziner have to be taken in context of what was going on by the Raziner. That the rayas were not so strong and were very weak. They were just Simonim, the way the Raziner understood them, and he had all right to. He was a great Talmud Chacham, but other Gedolim didn't see these rayas to be so strong, and they didn't take it so seriously. But now, where the rayas are much stronger, it's accepted by many, many great Rabbanim. We're Techeiles B'tzina. I've been involved in Techeiles in years. I know of so many great Rosh Yeshivas and Chassidus Rebbes and Sardish Gedolim from this door, and one that Asher in Enui Tanoyim that passed away already. Besides for Belsky and my uncles, that's how that word Techeiles and weird Techeiles, many hundreds of tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of Yidden accepted Techeiles, some as a vade and some as a suffix. To just say that it's nothing would be a bit bizarre and attire to them.
Rabbi Deutsch, what else would you say? Well,
Rabbi Yashiv was considered by everybody to be the Pesach Hadar. And when I was writing my book on Shemois, Rabbi Yashiv handed me a letter. I want to just read the last section of the letter. I'll actually translate it because I won't read the Hebrew. And he basically says that the Yeshuas Malkai has already shown about the previous Techeiles that they weren't there, it wasn't correctly. The other Techeiles that was found wasn't correct. And what's going to be with the new Techeiles, this was a letter he wrote to Raphael Cohn 20 years ago. And he says, even with the Radzinas Taina, that it's a Safik Daraisa. Safik Daraisa is Lechumra. Why are we wearing this? And Rabbi Yashiv says because there's open rayas that this doesn't fit exactly, and if something does not fit exactly, therefore we should follow not wearing Techeiles Bisman Hazeh. So he can go around saying hundreds of thousands of people and millions of people and all of the stories. The question is a very simple question. Does anybody today want to get involved, as the Rabbi Yashiv says, Mi achriya ben Rashi or Rambam, whether you're allowed to add spices or not to add spices? So Rabbi Yashiv ends his letter by saying that in B'derenu, therefore he concludes, we should not wear Techeiles. So he's not familiar with the Rebbe Mashab Svarim very conveniently, so I would suggest that you buy an Igros Kodesh from the Mashab. They're available all over. You can look it up at the letter yourself. He writes
Rabbi,
it. As far as the Beis Halevi...
Rabbi Deutsch, before, I have tshuva in front of you. Is that the tshuva to Raphael Cohn from Shimon Zion?
Correct. Rabbi Yashiv handed me the letter.
Well, where does he say... Where does he say not to read it? I don't see that in the tshuva. Could you point out that where it says in the tshuva?
Anyone can look it up in my book. I didn't prepare.
I have the tshuva in front of me.
What is he?
I'm looking at it.
Read the last two paragraphs.
The last Hagoyed Mikutna. That's the Yeshua's Malker Sheila Kutna, right? The Kvar Huchzik Esu Yisrael Ziyesame Elef Shana Shenignes Atcheles Upasha Lashon Asefri Parshis Bracho Midrashay. Right, Primigadim, Shamalamich, and Isasav Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ulavushe Kichalakir Alkaim, Yasta Talos Fatsis Lavanim. He says, according to the Primigadim.
Yasta Talos Fatsis Lavanim. That's what he said. Yeah, and he says it's 1,000 years. Not like Rabbi Barkin says that it was Nignas for 24 hours. Not like Rabbi Barkin said. No. He's quoting the Yeshua's Malkai, which is telling you it's Nignas 1,000 years, not overnight, Rabbi Barkin.
So can I'm just curious.
Yes.
So is your position that since you have the Ben Ish Chai and the Rebbe, the Rashab, and a number of other very great luminaries, Minchas Elazar, who say it was Nignaz, even if we absolutely 100% found that you're saying we should not use it because La Halacha was Nignaz?
It cannot be one of those things because the Beis Halevi says if it's Nignaz, it will not be discovered till Mashiach will come. It's very simple.
The Beis Halevi
is clear. Yeah, he's very clear. He says it cannot be a creature that was known to us through the generations. So the Murex can't be that.
But wait, the Murex snail, from what I understand, the process of how to turn it blue was newly discovered in the last 40 years or 50 years. For 1,000 years, even the Goyim didn't know how to turn Murex snail blue.
What does turning it blue have to do with the Dam Achilas and his Dami K'diyoi, that it's black? Well, the reason you wear black stripes, you know why you wear black stripes on your talis? Zeichel Adam Achilazin. It's not. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit.
Well, everybody agrees that it's similar here, that the Techeiles is supposed to be blue. So if for 1,000 years in the world it was lost, the process, right? It's not Daima. The Beis Halevi's point is the cuttlefish has been around for the last 1,000 years. If we didn't use it, we have a Messiah against it. But the Chazon, the process was lost even by the Goyim, was just recently found. So we don't have a Messiah against it, because all the Rishonim, Achronim, who didn't use it, is because they didn't have the process. The Techeiles doesn't say on a fish that it newly discovered the process that there would be a Messiah against it.
We cannot say that this was something that was known. That it is not the right thing. That's what the Beis Halevi, this is a direct quote what the Beis Halevi is saying.
I understand that he's referring to cuttlefish, which we knew were around for 2,000 years, whereas the Murex snail, the process, was lost for 1,000 years. So the point of the Beis Halevi is irrelevant to the Murex snail. That's what I believe Barkin is saying.
It's not what he's saying, and that's the point. It's nothing to do with process. He's saying that it was known to us and it was not accepted, and that's why it's considered to us to be a Mesorah Ma'aviseinu v'Avois Aviseinu. It's not nothing to do with processes. It has to do with the creature. If a creature was nignas, we're not talking about a process. We're saying that the chilazon was nignas. Usvune tmune chol zu chilazon. The chilazon was nignas, not a process.
So basically, if Eliyahu Hanav came and said, he said, look, I don't care who you are, it was nignaz. Let me ask you a question. If there was a free that say tefillin were nignaz, if somebody found the pair of tefillin, would we stop putting on tefillin? Matzah. Would we stop putting on matzah, bris milah, Shabbos? Like, is it some new halacha that if there's a free that says something is nignaz, we take one of the mitzvahs out of the Torah and we obliterate it? Like, would we stop doing milah if there was a free that said milah was nignaz?
Well, I cannot talk in hypotheticals, but I can tell you in reality. There is a difference when something is a mitzvah in the Torah that is something that we don't know which one is right or which one is not right. For example, there's a machlokes. What's the share of a litra? Lamed Yutes Reish. It's a measurement in halacha. So there's a opinion of Rashi, there's opinion of the Rif, and there's opinion of the Rambam. And it was something that was lost over time, and we didn't know exactly what the share of a litra was. Okay, so for example, and you could say it makes a difference in halacha too. For example, a person who's a ben Sarah Meir who steals from his parents and he buys meat and he buys a litra shel basar, he's a ben Sarah. A tartima shel basar is a ben Sarah Meir. Yerushalmi says a tartima is a half a litra. Okay, so maybe you'll say Ben Sarah Meir didn't exist. Okay, so that's not a good example. But you have another example. A person wants to make an eruv using yerukas, vegetables. He has to use a litra shel yerukas, a litra of vegetables. There it's negei lahalacha. So we have a share from the Rambam who says it's 154.7 grams. We have a share 148.7 grams. We have a share from the Rashi. Rashi says it's 354. We have a share of the Rif that says 420. There's obviously a big difference between 420 and 148.7. Well, many times Gedol Yisrael asked me if there's any museum or any ancient literature that has been found. And guess what? Yom Echad, there was one that was discovered. I brought it to Rabbi Yashiv. There's pictures of it in my book on Chumash Bereshis and the Hagdama, and I showed it to Rabbi Yashiv. And Rabbi Yashiv said to me, "Tzemir das negei la'alocha tzepaskin in the shir from ha'erev." So I asked him, "Yivol gepaskin mit gefunden antique? You would paskin with finding an antique?" So he told me, when they weren't sure which is the order that it was correct, they found film like Rashi, and the paskin is like Rashi. So there are times that we will use a discovery of something that was unknown between different shittas will follow something that was found.
What Rabbi Deutsch is referring to is the Beis Yosef believe in Siman Lamed Beis. It brings that in the Machlokes, Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi, they found Nafal, they found a pair of old tefillin by the cave of Yecheskel Hanavi, I think it was Yecheskel, and it was Peshitas Rashi and the Rambam, and based on that, the Beis Yosef says we should use those tefillin. That is what Rabbi Deutsch is referring to. Continue.
That is correct. That is correct. So there are times when there will be something that we find according to an opinion, and we totally don't know what to do in that situation. Therefore, we will accept that and paskin it. That's a far cry for where a situation where the things do not fit in completely. Let me tell you something. If they found Techeiles, they found a creature that had Giddim and Atzamas, and they found that, and it fit in with all the Shittas, and they found everything to do. The Aruch writes that in his time, he still knew how to catch a chilazon. He knew how to catch it. And very simply saying, we find certain Goinim had it, certain Goinim didn't have it. So there was things that was available to Yechidim that were not available for the masses. So there's a distinction also, which I didn't mention in response to what Rabbi Barkin said before. There's a difference of something that was available to everybody, or only Yechidim have it. Therefore, there is something to be said for if something is not clearly known or fits in with every shita, then it cannot be accepted to start doing something that doesn't fit. And I think that that is the reason why most Gedolei Yisrael didn't accept. Why didn't the Chofetz Chaim just say, you know what? Why not? Let's just start wearing the Radzin Techeiles. Why didn't Rabbi Jantina Snail? Why didn't he just start wearing the Jantina Snail? You know why? Why not? It was never done that way.
Rabbi Deutsch, I want to ask you a question. Rabbi Barkin, sure. I apologize. I would go back to you, but I have two questions. First question is, Rashi clearly says it's Techeiles. He says Techeiles and Rashi says Techeiles.
All right.
I don't know. Does the worm have Gidin Vatsamais?
Some do. And here's my point. When you say worm, when you say Techeiles, hold on. When you say Techeiles, what is it referring to? Snails are also that have an arctic are also considered a Techeiles. Therefore, there's an interesting thing as well, where we even find that it's almost like a kind of coral that's also mentioned, that it's similar to a kind of coral. So we see
now,
that
there's also, Rabbi Deutsch, there is a Maril in Simulamed Beis.
Right.
The Maril says clearly that if they would find a Techeiles, they would use it. And the Maril lived in Germany 500 years ago, or 400 years ago. So clearly this whole concept of it's Nignaz, and since it's Nignaz, we never do the mitzvah again. The Maril was the greatest paisik for Ashkenazic Jewry, right? The Ramah, most of his sak comes from the... So the Maril rejects this whole concept of, since there's a Chazal or a Zoyar that it's, or a Ari that it's Nignaz, we shouldn't use it. I mean, the Maril is a halachic source. It's not a Kabbalah Tzedekah source. So there is precedence among the greatest of the Paiskim to reject this. But I'm sort of, Rabbi Barkin, what would you say? Let's have some closing remarks. Rabbi Barkin, give us some closing remarks.
Let me just quickly answer back, like he said, like 10 points now. So just one thing is that it doesn't say in any source, no reason, no achron, that the black stripes on his house are zeichel dam chilazon. There is no aruch that says he knew how to catch the chilazon. The Giddim Vatzamas Israel dealt with them. Yurks has Giddim Vatzamas in a certain oifen, and either Tilu or Sha'aron. Rabbi Yashiv does not bring rayas against the chilazon, like Rabbi Deutsch says. The Beis Halevi, when he speaks about the issue of constant Messiah on something, that it's the wrong thing, says clearly that if you forgot in that place, he says clearly, if the way of Tzviya even got forgotten, then it already satisfies his requirements. The Chofetz Chaim did not put on the Rediner's Techeiles because it had absolutely no rayas. This one has rayas. Rabbi Yashiv says Beferish in that letter, which does not need to be handed over to anyone because it's published already in Koibus Chuvas and in Halichas Sada. He says that he doesn't know a lot of the Metzias of it. My closing remarks are that the Murex purpura snail was mentioned by many Gedolei Hachronim. The Shulti Gibayim, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, Rabbi Shanshafal Hertz writes at Beferish in his Chumash in German that the chilazon is a purpur schneck. If someone wants to know if it fits with everything or doesn't fit with everything, so Rabbi Deutsch already just said b'shem Rabbi Yashiv that even if there's a machlekes about something, you could use the Metzias to be machriya. So we could use accordingly we could use the Metzias to be machriya between questions of the Rishonim according to Rabbi Yashiv, as Rabbi Deutsch is saying. So over here we don't even have to deal with that because everything basically fits anyways. So we don't have to mechriya too much. We have to mechriya a little bit maybe if it's a wife blood or if it's a misgad pocket blood or not the wife blood. There's a question in the Rishonim. So Rabbi Yashiv is saying, according to Rabbi Deutsch, that we can use the Metzias to be mechriya. So I guess we're all set. He might have said a lot of other comments here, but I can't remember all the 15 things that went down over here.
Rabbi Deutsch, how would you say?
Anyone who wants to wear Techeiles should speak to their local Moira Hira and decide whether or not the Techeiles is good for them or not good for them. As far as the Indian is concerned, it's very clear that this is not something that if Mishi Yeshle Daite Shafoi and who looks into something and looks in for V'chakarta V'darashta Heitev, we didn't even mention a Mishnah Mesechtes Kalim that doesn't fit in with the Chilazim the way he's describing and other things. But I'm not going to even get into all of that now. Everyone who wants to really consider wearing this, whether to be Mekabel themselves to wear Techeiles, there are a lot of great people who have put on this new Techeiles. But if you ask me, again, in my museum, I represent all Shitas. Someone comes and asks me about Techeiles, I show them a Jantina snail, I show them a Murex, I show them a cuttlefish, I show them there's a new Shita in Eretz Yisrael called the horseshoe crab. A fourth Shita has come out in Eretz Yisrael, which has also been disproven. But now we're not even going to get into the horseshoe crab today. But the bottom line is that has blue blood. We're not even going to go into it. Somebody who really wants to look on what to do in such a situation, speak to your local Moira Ra. Again, I have nothing against Rabbi Barkin. The fact that he insulted me, that I made up Makaras, we're not. I moichel him publicly. Machalach, machalach, machalach. I wish you a lot of atzlacha. And if anyone wants to see all these creatures alive, you're more than welcome to visit the Living Torah Museum. I'll be glad to show you, to talk about it. And again, my position is to show all opinions on every single subject. You asked me my own position why this will not be accepted by most of Klal Yisrael, which is the Hasidic Olam. For all those who follow, Chabad is not going to accept this because of the Rebbe Mashab. Those who are following the Beis Halevi are not going to accept the new Techeiles. Those who are following other people are not going to accept it. So the point is, everybody should speak to their local Moira Hira. My discussion here today was just about the Indian and not trying to insult anyone personally, but anyone should look into it for themselves. And if you want to see it,
thank you very much, Rabbi Deutsch. Thank you very much, Rabbi Barkin.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the magenta snail, as well as the that he's referring to? Tell us a little bit about the jantina and the horseshoe snail. Give us
sure.
like a 2
I'll
minute.
just on the kud about the Mishnah and Kalim. There's a Mishnah and Kalim that speaks about a chilazon thing that's at the end of a chain, and the Rambam Perish Mishnaya says that you have a shell-like object, and the Aruch says also that you have that it's something that's mukaf, which possibly could refer to a snail. It doesn't say none of the Rishonim learn in any way that doesn't fit with the Murex. So I think the Rambam concurs with that. Rabbi Deutsch, when he said it doesn't fit with the Mishnah and Kalim, was coming from the Radina Rebbe that said a nupshat in the Mishnah that has many hooks coming out of its head. But it's a nupshat in the Mishnah which is based partially on the Teferes Yisrael. But as I say, tell us
about
okay.
these.
I just wanted to clear up the Mishnah and Kalim issue.
Okay.
The other snail, the Jansen snail, was something that Rav Herzog, when he worked on the issue of the Techeiles, most of his research was researching about the Murex trunculus, because he thought that would be the most probable thing, but he wasn't able to get a blue dye from it, and there were other objections that he had, which have been answered these days. He didn't see the shell to be considered daimel yamin. He had issues with oilach l'shevim shana. So because of that, he said even though it makes so much sense the Murex would be the chilazon, he raised his hands in despair that it doesn't really fit in ways that I'm saying that we've answered these days. So he threw another suggestion called the Jantina snail, which floats on top of the water. It's a beautiful purple blue shell. So it fits with the most simple description of Gufay Dem Yam, and Herzog thought that might be the idea. Herzog never tried out with it. Lamai says that any chemist that dealt with it said that the thing doesn't have anything in it that's royal tzvia. It's not you can't be tzvia with it. The horseshoe crab is just some idea that someone threw out and printed in some kaivet somewhere. It was never anything brought up in any serious forum, so I don't think that should be discussed even. But Jansen was brought up by a serious Rav. Now, Lemaisa, indigo is a better candidate for the chilazon than all these other things.
Yeah, but that's kalila.
Yeah, I know, but the reason it's a better candidate because at least it can make a blue color, and all these things have nothing to do with it. They're not tzayvim. Just because it has blue blood doesn't mean it's teveh. So, of course, indigo is not the Techeiles.
So Rabbi Barkin, in conclusion,
they're not teveh. They're nothing. The Murex is the only sea creature that's teveh.
Rabbi Barkin, in conclusion, to you, is it like what percentage chance that the Murex is real Techeiles? Is it 10%, 20, 50? How strong do you feel this?
98, 99 maybe.
98, 99%. Thank you very much, Rabbi Barkin. It's been a pleasure having you on with us. So 2 weeks ago, we had Rabbi Aaron Cutler on the radio, and we discussed, a very painful situation that's going on in his community. And among it, I just mentioned the Chacham Tzvi. I said, Gezel Akum is an Issa Daraisa, and according to the Chacham Tzvi, it makes one Pasul Eidos. So I said, I wonder if people are aware of the chaimer of it, and if maybe perhaps somebody did a Kiddushin, and they had an aide who was over on Gezel Akum, he would have to redo the Kiddushin, or on a Ksuba, he would have to redo the Ksuba. I said, it's a possibility, it's certainly something to be concerned about. We have a Chacham Tzvi was certainly one of the greatest Achrayim, right, father of Rabbi Yankov Emden, whatever, the Paisik Adoyer of his generation, and I didn't know anybody who argues on it. Now, I do want to make it clear, we don't know what happened, nor can we say with any definity that people will be found guilty, etc. So it's just a response to the news. We are certainly not convicting anybody. It's not my job, chas v'shalom, ever. This is just a Torah program. But on the tzad, on the possibility, assuming that the government is right here, I threw out that question, and I got the following voicemail, and I think it's worth listening to. This is a courteous, intelligent round, and I'd like to respond to it.
Hello, thank you for this week's show. I enjoyed it from Rabbi Cutler. I had one point, Rabbi Lichtenstein, on that which you mentioned, that there's a concern that these people, even were to be that they're guilty, I should say were to be that they're actually guilty, there's a concern that they're Pasul Eidos. It seems as if a Gemara in Sanhedrin Hafchafov was overlooked. A Gemara which is Paskin in Rambam in Hilchos Eidos and Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Eidos and Siman Lamed Daled, that the only time a person is Pasul Eidos, even if he does have Aver D'Oraisa, it's only if he's amazing. If he's a Shogeg or if he's Meir Heter, he is not Pasul Eidos. Besides for the fact that at least Mitzad Gezel, it is also incorrect to call this Gezel. This is not an issue of Gezel Akum. This is an issue of Mate Akum, which is a big machlekes Rishonim. If Mate is Motor or Osir, and the Arma Kilim, and it seems that the minig throughout the Doiris was to be Meklon, Mate Akum, although the Beragoyva says that one should be Machmir, it seems that the minig was to be Mekel. Now, obviously, if it's Bolidei Chol Hashem, obviously it's a problem. But Al Kaban, that which you call the Gezel, is incorrect. It is not an issue of Gezel, it's an issue of Mateh, which there are sources to be Matir, Mate Akum. Either way, it's Pashut to Pashut that any person who does such a thing, even if they do it, they're not Nazidim. They're Shegeg or Omer Motor. And therefore there's absolutely no concern that they're Pasul Eidos, they're kosher Eidos, and there's no reason why anyone who used them as a Kedushin has to chas v'shalom be a fatfik or kihuzeh, and anything that they're made on, and they remain kosher Eidos l'chol dover Shabbat Torah. I look forward to a response from this because I think this is something that could very much mislead people and very much be mitzvah on people, and it's something which is incorrect. So I hope you could respond to this.
So let's respond to this caller's voicemail. First, I would like to say that he makes a number of points. Point one is he says that a Mate Akum does not have a din of Gezel. There's 2 days in the Shulchan Aruch, and he says, well, maybe we hold the other day. So this is just, I believe, a mistake, because if you look at the Shach on the side, he brings a Yam Shel Shloima and Baba Kama in Siman Chaf, and the Yam Shel Shloima explains how could a Mate Akum be Mutter? He says, if Gezel Akum is us, why would be B'mata to take money away be any different? And the Marshal explains that the Rashi, which is the Makayr of this Shita that says Mata Akum's Mata, that's the Makayr of the other tzad in the Shulchan Aruch, is because it remains like Hafklas Halva. He says if somebody doesn't pay their meches, he doesn't pay a halva, and he's Moshe Chayfetz and he's Mata in the payment, he says it just remains Hafklas Halvasai. Rashi holds by Mekach Memka or Meches, it's not Gezela because it's just Havkas Halvasai. I have paid something, I have not paid a debt that I owe. But he says most certainly to be matet to take something, he says even Rashi would agree that is gezel. Shachar al gabe levin, a black and white Yam Shel Shlomo. The Shach doesn't bring the entire, he just mentions the Yam Shel Shlomo. If you look at the Yam Shel Shlomo, it's in Perek of Syria, Baba Kama, it's Siman Chaf, and he says it just very, very clearly. And it's very logical what he says. So first of all, even if you hold like those Shitas, the other side of the Torah that Mat is Mutter, in this case it certainly wouldn't be Mutter, not being Mechadish. I'm just saying over in Marshal. To my knowledge, nobody argues on this Marshal. Now, additionally, he says that it's I'm a mutter or shaygeg, and I don't know, when somebody is over on Gezel and they sign under the oath of perjury, I declare this to be true. I don't know, is that really I'm a mutter? I don't know, it could be, I don't know. I don't respond, I put it out there a question. I would like to ask this very intelligent Yungamana question. So it could be I'm a mutter, it could be shaygeg, it could be like the Tzad in the Shulchan Aruch. Maybe you'll even find somebody who argues on the Marshal. I didn't see anybody. I just like the Teshach. So we have like a Tzad of a few Tzadim, maybe that. I want to ask you a question. Imagine that you went to a Sheva Brachas in a restaurant. You were invited. You were invited. And afterwards the guy comes over and he says, it was very funny. He says, the Mashgiach didn't show up. So the chef is an Yehudi, and by accident he brought his pot and he cooked the chicken in a treifa pot. And the cheesecake that he served, he was supposed to serve parva cheesecake. Since the Mashiach wasn't here, A, he used the treifa pot, B, the Mashiach didn't turn on the fire, and he put cheese in the cheesecake, and he served you. You're the younger man who called and he served you. So the guy would say, what do you mean he served me? It's treif. So wait, it's treif. It's bishul akum, it's gvina, it's bas b'chala midrabanan, it's so wait. There's a shita in the Paiskim that a restaurant is not bishul akum. The kli is treif. Wait. Certainly we say stam kelim eina b'nei yaiman. It's nice and tam lefgam, very possibly because he served something shellfish. It doesn't mix well with the chicken, so it's nice and tam lefgam. So you have another suffix, right? As far as the cheesecake afterwards, there's the sheet of the ritva noit kama that on chicken there's no shaila of gvina after chicken, that it's mutter. So I have kama sheetas. I have the sheetas that there's no bishul akum. I have the sheetas of stam kelim eina b'nei yaiman. So therefore, the chicken that you ate by Eina Yehudi's cook in a treifa pot, followed by the cheesecake, I have all sheetas that it's mutter. Boy, is there something wrong with that? And you say, what are you, crazy? You should have told me this. Well, I wouldn't have eaten. I wouldn't eat in a treifa restaurant with treifa kelim to be saimach had stam kelim eina b'nei yaiman. I think that's what you would answer. Otherwise, honestly, that's what we can start eating at treifa restaurants with all these cake coolers, right? So I ask you, a guy gets married. He could live, according to the Chacham Tzvi, he should live till 120 for the next heaven knows how many years, and he's leaving Be'issa for the next 60 or 70 years. So we have something. Maybe when he signed, he didn't know. Maybe the tour. Maybe there's somebody who argues in the Marshal, so we'll concoct some type of, would you eat in that restaurant? Would you want this person? Now that's a one-time achila. This is for every time. So I would just respond, there's a word from Rabbi Yisroel Salanta. He says, Niplana b'yad adam of yad Hashem ala poila, in other words, fakert, yad adam ala poila, that, unfortunately, we're much more mekil in dvarim of gezel, even though they're much more chomer can come out, certainly in the case of it, than we are in machalas. So I would just ask you, would you eat it? Would you feel bad having eaten at that Sheva Brachas? And that would sort of be my response, both halachically and hashkafically to your question. Enjoyed this program. Remember, go out and buy Headlines 2. It's the most fascinating English halacha sefer you will buy this year. It will make you one of the more interesting people at the table. A wonderful week.